Hello everyone, welcome to the NFL Week 7 edition of the Player Prop Countdown, where I rank my top 10 player props for this week's NFL action. If you're looking for the road to 272 bets, where I give my best bet on the sides and the totals of every single game, that episode was released Tuesday morning, so you can check that out. This episode, we're short and sweet. I'm ranking my top 10 player props, then I'll give you my favorite DFS lineup for this weekend's action. I did not have the audio version or video version for that matter of this podcast last week. I was sick and then had to leave the next morning back home to Canada for a wedding. So I did not have one last week in terms of audio video. I did have a written version of this, which is always available every week at si.com/betting. And I did tweet it out. So I did make 10 player props last week. And if you have been listening and watching and reading my player prop countdown throughout this season, you're probably not going to be surprised to find out that I once again went 5-5. It's starting to actually get weird or possibly comical, the fact that I've gone 5-5. We're 6 weeks in now. I've gone 5-5 with my player props every single week, except for the 1 week I went 5-4-1 because I had an Evan Ingram prop, and that was the week that he got hurt in warmups and didn't end up playing. So that ended up obviously being a void bet. I assume if Evan Ingram was going to play that game or did end up playing that game, he probably would have not reached it because I probably would have went 5-5 that week. The good news, and I'm glad that I did this, I have each week I make a weekly dark horse touchdown score bet. And the good news is 2 of the weeks I've cashed that, including this past week. Michael Wilson cashed for us for an anytime touchdown bet this past week, which actually brings my, which means even though I went 5-5, I did finish with a profit. I went 5-5 for plus 2.02 units with that Michael Wilson prop, which was plus 350. That was a big win for us last week. That brings my season-to-date record to 30-29-1 for plus 3.06 units. So now heading into week 7 with a strong road to 272 last week, I am now profitable betting both the road to 272, betting a side or total on every single NFL game, and I am profitable betting 10 player props every single week. I hope this lasts for the rest of the season. Best case scenario was being profitable in both, and at least, we are a third of the way through the season. We are profitable. 6 weeks in is a third of the way. 6, 12, 18. Let's keep it going this week. We just go all one cut here on the player prop countdown. We're nice and short and sweet. So we're just going to dive right into it. I go from my number 10 ranked prop all the way down to my favorite. I see that my cat is now scratching at my door. It's too late, Daisy. We don't make cuts in the player prop countdown. I don't edit this, so I can't get up to let you out of this room because I can't take a break and then edit it later. So you're stuck in here with me, Daisy. You may as well come over here and have a seat. Let's start my number 10 ranked player prop this week. I'm going against my Falcons here with this one. I'm going to take Geno Smith over 263.5 pass yards against the Atlanta Falcons. This kind of relates to my bet. I'm also taking the Seahawks with the points in this one. That I don't like. The Falcons are kind of a weird scenario where all their like simple statistics, like yards per play, opponent yards per play, everything that's just like a straightforward stat, they're very good in. But the advanced metrics don't like the Falcons. So I'm going to trust the advanced metrics in this one. And a perfect example of this is the Falcons they rank both in the top 10 and opponent yards per pass attempt and opponent total passing yards per game. They're only allowing 193 passing yards per game, but their advanced numbers, they're 21st in opponent EPA per dropback and 20th in opponent dropback success rate. That is not a good sign if you believe in advanced analytics. If you believe in the advanced analytics, then you would think that their strong simple statistics are going to regress. Which I certainly don't like as a Falcons fan, but I'm going to take advantage of this from a betting standpoint. And also, don't forget the Seahawks throw the ball more than any other team in the NFL. They throw the ball on 68.35% of plays. That is 2.72% more than the next closest team. That has also resulted in Geno Smith leading the NFL so far in passing yards with 296.3. And that is 33 yards more than his set total for this game. So if he even comes close to his season average against the Falcons, this bet will be a winner. So number 10 player prop, Geno Smith over 263.5 pass yards. My number 9, I'm going to the Panthers and the Commanders game. I'm going to take a shot on a receiver who I think is being a little bit undervalued in the market. That is Deontay Johnson of the Carolina Panthers. I'm going to take him to go over 66.5 receiving yards against the Washington Commanders. Doesn't have a ton of catches this season, but if you actually look at his targets, Deontay Johnson is tied for third in the NFL in targets with 55. He's tied with CeeDee Lamb for the third most targets in the league. That tells me that he's been getting plenty of opportunities to produce, and if those opportunities continue, then he should be able to produce at a pretty high clip against a Commanders secondary that absolutely stinks. Commanders are 28th in opponent dropback EPA, 31st in opponent dropback success rate, and 28th in opponent yards per pass attempt, giving up 7.5 yards per throw. So I actually think the Panthers are going to have some success throwing the ball in this game. And if they do, Deontay Johnson is going to be a pretty significant benefactor of that. Number 8 player prop for this week. I'm looking at the Sunday Night Football game between the Jets and the Steelers. I still don't know why this is the Sunday Night Football game with all the other good games that are on tap for Sunday. But regardless, I'm going to take Breece Hall under 61.5 rush yards at minus 119. Breece Hall has struggled this season at times when he faces good run defenses. I know he had a 100-yard performance. It's like 115 yards or something against the Bills this past week. But previous to that, he gained just 4 yards on 10 carries against the Broncos, 23 yards on 9 carries against the Vikings, also just 54 yards on 16 carries against a pretty solid run defense in the Patriots back in week 3. And now he has to, once again, take on one of the best run defenses in the NFL in the Pittsburgh Steelers. The Steelers are allowing just 3.6 yards per rush. That's the second lowest mark amongst all teams. They're also second in opponent rush EPA. So the Steelers' run defense, very good. I think the Jets are going to be able to find some success through the air, but they're going to struggle running the football, and that's going to hurt Breece Hall's production. I was actually surprised his rushing yards total for this game was as high as it is. So my number 8 ranked player prop is going to be Breece Hall under 61.5 rush yards against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Number 7, Josh Allen has yet to throw an interception this NFL season. I am going to bet on that streak to be broken at plus 115 odds. Josh Allen and the Bills are taking on the Tennessee Titans. If you've been listening to this podcast throughout the season, you know how high I am on the Titans defense. I don't think their secondary gets the credit that they deserve. They lead the NFL in opponent dropback success rate. They also lead the NFL in opponent yards per pass attempt, giving up just 5.0 yards per throw. Now, if you do look at the amount of interceptions they've managed to get this season, I think they only have 1 interception, to be honest. So they haven't been able to force turnovers through the air. But generally speaking, if you're going to shut down the your opponent's pass attack, the interceptions are going to come eventually. So I think Josh Allen, I know he has Amari Cooper now, but Amari Cooper's had... He's caused some interceptions himself this season. You know, as much as we want to shit on Deshaun Watson, Amari Cooper has had at least 1, I think 2 balls go right off his hands into an opponent's hands for the Browns this season. And still, he's probably not, fully, caught up in the system for the Bills. He's going to take time for him to build some chemistry with Josh Allen. I think the Bills are going to struggle in this game. As the week goes on, the more and more I think the Bills are going to struggle in this game. So I will take Josh Allen to finally throw his first interception of the season at plus 115. The anytime touchdown score bets have saved me this season. And I have another one that is at north of 3-1 odds. It's actually at plus 340. The best price for that I could find was at FanDuel. So always shop around, especially for touchdown score bets, even more so than other prop bets. I find pretty big discrepancy in odds. For example, I'll just take a look at the 2 most popular sports books. Demario Douglas to score a touchdown at DraftKings is plus 255. At FanDuel, it's plus 340. That's a significant change. So yeah, I'll take Demario Douglas to score a touchdown at plus 340 at FanDuel. He is by far the top receiver for the Patriots this season, and he thrived in Drake May's first start last week. In Drake May's first start against the Texans last week, Demario Douglas hauled in 6 receptions on 9 targets, including 1 for a score. He did find the end zone last week. His 9 targets were 4 more than any other pass catcher for the Patriots. So Drake May targeted Demario Douglas early and often in that game. And now these two guys get to take on a Jaguars secondary that has been horrific to start the year. And most importantly, they have allowed 2.3 passing touchdowns per game. That is the most in the NFL by 0.3 per game. Now I'm going to dive into my thoughts on the Jaguars secondary a little bit more because my 5th player prop is along the same lines. I'm trying to double dip by fading the Jaguars secondary here. I'm going to take Drake May in his second career start to go over 203 pass yards against this Jaguars defense. First of all, New England was not afraid to let Drake May throw the ball in his debut start last week. I know they were, in a negative game script pretty quickly in that game, so they had no choice to let Drake May throw the ball, but he did complete 20 passes on 33 attempts for 243 yards. So he went well over 200 yards in his first start, and now he gets to face a much weaker secondary in Jacksonville, a secondary that ranks 29th in opponent yards per pass attempt, 27th in opponent dropback success rate, and dead last in opponent dropback EPA. This is going to be a fantastic matchup for Drake May. I think it's a good buy low. I don't necessarily want to say buy low. It's almost as if Drake May stock has just entered the stock market. This is a great matchup for him. If he can throw for 243 yards against the Texans, he can throw for 204 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. Moving on to my number 4 player prop for week 7 of the NFL season. I'm going to take, and this one's a plus money one. I know the people love a good plus money bet. Give me T. Higgins over 5.5 receptions at plus 123. Yes, Ja'Marr Chase is obviously the number 1 receiver in Cincinnati, but T. Higgins has seen a ton of balls thrown his way when he's been active this season. He's played in 2 fewer games than Ja'Marr Chase, but he has seen only 5 fewer targets than Ja'Marr Chase. He's actually had 2 games already this season where he's seen double-digit targets. He had 14 targets against the Baltimore Ravens. He's also gone over 5.5 receptions in 3 of his 4 starts. I don't see any reason why he can't reach 6 receptions in this game, and you can get it at pretty good plus money, at a pretty good plus money price at plus 123. So Higgins over 5.5 receptions, plus 123. The numbers are there. He's been targeted early and often in these games by Joe Burrow, so I love that bet quite a bit. That is my number 4th ranked player prop for the week. Number 3 ranked player prop for the week. I'm fading the Bills once again. This might just come back and bite me in the ass, fading the Bills as much as I am. But I'm going to take Tony Pollard, the running back for the Titans, over 63.5 rush yards at minus 119. I do think the Bills have some more issues than the general NFL fan realizes. And their biggest weak spot, I mean, they kind of had 2 big ones. They kind of addressed one by trading for Amari Cooper. But so now really their biggest weakness remaining, in my opinion, is their run defense. Heading into this week, they rank dead last in the NFL in opponent yards per carry. Teams are getting 5.3 yards per rush against them. And let's take a look at some of the yardages that their opposing running backs have been able to rack up against them this season. Breece Hall, 113 yards against them last week. Derrick Henry went for 199 yards against them in week 4. Travis Etienne posted 68 yards on just 11 carries against them in week 3. Starting running backs against the Buffalo Bills have thrived. Now, a big concern with this one for me is that if the Bills do take a big lead in this game, and that's certainly possible based on what the point spread is, they may just have to throw the ball, and Pollard may not get enough carries to reach this total. But he has ran the ball a ton. He's averaging 15.6 carries per game this season. And he has surpassed 63.5 rush yards in 3 of the Titans' 5 games. And there was a 4th game he finished with like 61, so just under his set total for this game. He's averaging 4.3 yards per rush. He's kind of gotten better as the season has gone on as well. So I think this is a great matchup for the Titans starting running back, and this is probably going to be a bet I may do moving forward every week until the Bills prove they can stop the run, which they haven't been able to do so far this season. Oh, I don't know if the mic caught that. My cat is not happy that I'm not letting her out of the room. Daisy, come here. Daisy, come here. Come give out a pick. Who you got? What's her best player prop for this week? Come here. Come here. No, she's not coming. She used to make appearances on this show. She used to strut across the camera. Not so much anymore. All right. Top 2 player props for this week. Number 2 is going to be a Thursday night football game. So this is one for the people who listen to this when this episode first gets released on Thursday. If you listen to it later than that, you're going to miss this one. For better or for worse, we'll see. But I'll go Spencer Rattler under 183.5 pass yards at -115. Spencer Rattler is entering an impossible situation on Thursday night against the Broncos. He's going to be making his second career start as a rookie on a short week, and he'll have to do it against a Broncos secondary that allows just 170.2 passing yards per game. They also rank 3rd in opponent dropback EPA and 6th in opponent dropback success rate. To make matters worse, as if that wasn't already bad enough, no Chris Olave, no Rashid Shaheed. That means that Spencer Rattler gets to throw to the likes of Bub Means, Cedric Wilson Jr., Maston Tipton, that's not a real guy, and Jawan Johnson. Yeah, okay, good luck. This is a disaster of a situation Spencer Rattler is walking into on Thursday night. I'd be shocked if he goes over 183.5 passing yards. So I will take the under on Rattler's passing yards on Thursday night football. Which leaves me with my number 1 player prop for week 7 action. We are going from Thursday night football all the way to Monday night football. I hate to back a divisional rival, but I love this bet too much. Baker Mayfield to go over 258.5 pass yards at -117 odds. I think he's going to absolutely torch this Ravens defense. When a team has a good record, and we see this a little bit to of an extent with the Bills, people just look at them and like, oh, they're a good team, and they don't really either notice or realize or want to talk about their weaknesses. The Ravens secondary has been terrible this year. I know they've won 4 straight games, 4 straight games. I know they've won 4 straight games after starting 0-2. I know their offense has been probably the best offense in the NFL. Their run defense has been the best run defense in the NFL. They are like the number 1 team in every area, except for their secondary is bottom 5. Definitely bottom 10. Probably closer to bottom 5. Baltimore, heading into this week, ranks 26th in opponent yards per pass attempt, giving up 7.5 yards per throw. 27th in opponent dropback EPA. 23rd in opponent dropback success rate. They're also allowing the second most total passing yards per game at 275.7 and the most pass plays of 20-plus yards with 28. That's actually 20 more pass plays of 20-plus yards they've allowed more than the Falcons, who've only allowed 8. That's great news. So Baker Mayfield comes into this game. He's having a career year. He's got a stacked receiving core that can take advantage of the weakness of the Ravens. He's already averaging 248.2 passing yards per game, so he only needs to surpass his season average by 11 yards, and this bet will win. And as a final cherry on top, with the Ravens being overall the better team, I mean, they are favored by 3.5 points, that would lead to potentially the Buccaneers having to play from behind, a negative game script. That will lead to the Buccaneers likely having to throw the ball throughout the game from start to finish, especially at the end of the game if they have to play catch-up. So I think everything is working in the Buccaneers' favor. Every single box that I would want to check to bet the over on a pass yards prop is checked in this game. So that's why this is my number 1 prop. Baker Mayfield over 258.5 passing yards on Monday Night Football against the Baltimore Ravens. So let's just go ahead and recap those top 10 picks. I got number 10 is Geno Smith over 263.5 pass yards, -115. Number 9 is Diontae Johnson over 66.5 receiving yards. Number 8, Breece Hall under 61.5 rush yards. Number 7, Josh Allen to throw an interception. Number 6, Pop Douglas to score a touchdown, plus 340. Number 5, Drake May over 203.5 pass yards. T. Higgins over 5.5 receptions. Tony Pollard over 63.5 rush yards. Spencer Rattler under 183.5 pass yards. And Baker Mayfield over 258.5 pass yards on Monday Night Football. Let's quickly go over my DFS lineup, which I started strong with DFS to start the year. Has not really gone my way recently, but regardless, let's see what I've cooked up this week. Okay, here we go. My DFS lineup for this week. I said at the start of the show I wasn't going to edit. I just had to make an edit because I couldn't figure out why my screen wasn't showing up. But here it is, my DFS lineup. I wish we could use London games, but the lineup I did was just Sunday, early afternoon, late afternoon, and evening. If you want to do a DFS lineup that includes the London game, I would actually really love Drake May as a cheap option for the reasons I laid out in this show. But I did not have that option. So I went Geno Smith against my Falcons anyways at 5,800. I think that's pretty good. That's a pretty good price point for the leading passer in the NFL, right? 5,800, leading passer in the NFL against a defense that some signs point towards the fact that they're going to regress. So I'll go Geno Smith as my quarterback. Brian Robinson, I limited practice, so let's hope Brian Robinson plays. But he's one of my running backs here for Washington going up against the Panthers. If they get the lead, Washington probably going to run the ball a little bit more. Brian Robinson has had a great year to begin with. And the Panthers defense is dead last against running backs in terms of fantasy points. So pretty good play there for 6,400. Tony Pollard, for the reason I talked before, against Buffalo. Bills ranked dead last in opponent yards per carry. Pollard gets plenty of carries. That should be a good matchup for them. Diontae Johnson, I mean, like most of these DFS players in my DFS lineups, they are guys I'm betting on to go over their totals, so I don't really need to explain it again. Diontae Johnson against Carolina, I don't really love that I have two different players in this same game. Opposite teams, though. But Diontae Johnson for Carolina, tied for third in targets. Commanders' secondary stinks. I think that's a pretty good bet there. T. Higgins, just based on how many targets T. Higgins has seen as well in his 4 games, going up against the Browns. My other wide receiver, Ray McLeod, it was just an option. For the rest of my lineup to work, I needed a really cheap option. So Ray McLeod is $4,400. I think he's a great option for the Falcons. If you want kind of a high ceiling, he has a low floor. Obviously, that's why he's a cheap option. But I mean, to kind of win these big DFS pools, you got to take some risks on some potential high ceiling guys. And Ray McLeod, I mean, he runs the ball for the Falcons. He's obviously a receiving threat. He's an explosive guy. So I think at 4,400, if you want a cheap guy who has a high ceiling, you can kind of take a risk there. So I went Ray McLeod for my third wide receiver. Tight end, I went Dalton Schultz. I think I've gone Dalton Schultz a few weeks now. He is just... The tight end situation is crazy in the NFL right now. There's no surefire tight end. There are good tight ends who are going to have like really good games, but then also other weeks just have complete nothing games. I mean, Mark Andrews is a great example. I think Mark Andrews was the top tight end in the NFL in fantasy last week. And that was, week number 6 after 5 weeks of doing almost nothing. So instead of risking on my tight end by paying a high salary for a tight end that may just lay a nothing burger, I'm going to take a cheap option that still has the potential to have a big game. And I think Dalton Schultz for the Houston Texans is one of those potentials. Now, I did take Tank Dell as well. So I have 2 different pass catchers for Houston. I might change that now that I see that. But I do like Tank Dell, obviously, quite a bit with Nico Collins out in that game, which I believe is going to be a bit of a shootout game between the Texans and the Packers. And then I'm going to take the Bengals defense. Bengals defense, which is one of the worst defenses in the NFL. But the Browns offense absolutely stinks. And with Amari Cooper no longer there, I know Nick Chubb is back, but it's probably going to take him a little bit to kind of get back to full force. I don't know how the Browns are going to move the ball. So I'll take the Bengals, hope Deshaun Watson tosses a couple interceptions, and see if we can get some points from one of the more cheap defense options in the Bengals. And the Bengals, to be fair, had a very good performance last week against the Giants, so maybe they are figuring something out defensively. So there you go. Quarterback Geno Smith, and I got Brian Robinson, Tony Pollard as my running backs, Deontay Johnson, T. Higgins, Ray McLeod as my receivers, Dalton Schultz in at tight end, and Tank Dell in at my flex spot, and then Bengals defense as my defense. So there you have it. That is the NFL Week 7 edition of the Player Prop Countdown. Please subscribe to the Bacon Bets podcast on YouTube. Rate and review the audio version of this podcast. Don't forget to check out this week's version of the Road to 272 Bets. 10-4 last week. We're going to try to follow that up with another big week this week. So go ahead and check that out if you haven't already. Gamble or bless, my friends. Enjoy it. We are a third of the way through the NFL season. Take advantage of these weekends, because before we know it, the NFL season is going to be over. Best of luck, and I'll talk to you next week for Tuesday morning. I'll be back for week 8 of the Road to 272 Bets. Talk to you then.